Hey guys, it's Chris here from Fiddle Shooter. I'm just going to take you through the Fiddle Shooter method because I'm going to be practicing Shona's tune, the Goblin jig. Might not get through too much of this section at the moment. I've only got a short moment, but this is a great way to show you how you can make a lot out of the very short time that you have. So, I'm going to start off with the first bar in this instance, and going to start by rhythm counting it alongside my metronome. Now, I am tuned up, and I've taken the time to tune up before. This is really, really important that you always tune up before you play, and sometimes while you play as well. Okay, so the way this is a jig, so of course we think about the beats in two main beats. All of the subdivisions are divided into two for a jig, or for most jigs. So it's going to be 1 and 2. And remember that if this were, say, all quavers, then it'd be 1 and 2 and but as we can see, it's not, and there's some a little bit more complicated bowing as well. So replace the for then, so it'll be 1, then 2 and let me just count that for you so you can hear. First, so I'm gonna go to 50 beats per minute. That's might be a bit quick for some, but I'm just going to try and get through as much as I can. 1, then 2, and 1, then 2, and 1, then 2, and 1, then 2, and okay, cool. So if that's okay, then what I'll do is I'll try and involve the bowing. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to remove the second beat. So I'm just going to remove the 2. I'm not going to actually say it. I'm going to come back in with and yeah, so it'll be like this: 1, then, and 1, then, and 1, then, and 1, then, and okay. So being happy with that, I'm going to move on to now playing, and I'm going to play mostly on the A to begin with, okay, because the A is an okay string for this. So it's all going to be on the A, hand on the violin. This is so it's like completely a right hand technique, and going to take that rhythm again. 1, then, and 1, then, and okay, so here I can think about bowing, I can think about bow turns and tone quality. This is the beauty of it, you know, you're always working on these fundamentals by going through it in this way. I'm pulsing the bow for this bowing to just signify that there is bowing there. And it's actually quite nice in the piece when we come to it. I'm sure it'll sound good. So now I'm going to move on to string differentiation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to play out this rhythm over the 2 strings that it would be played on. So I'm playing the strings without fingering, so we know that this green's going to be for A, and then these are all going to be on the E string. Okay, so might want to slow it down to begin with, because sometimes this is a bit difficult. But I'm used to this method now, so it should be okay. I'll count myself in. 1, then, and 1, then, and not that easy. Cool. So what was difficult was needing to push this last quaver to get to the heel for here. So that became apparent. Obviously this was quite tricky. So I had to pulse this, which we talked about before. You know, this is again, like I've done this quite a lot, so this kind of comes a little bit more naturally to me, but it might not to you. So just, you know, take your time. Don't feel like you have to rush through these things. The whole point of it is that we build strong fundamentals and we're adding these tools to our toolbox. So the more we go over these kind of rhythms, these familiar rhythms, the easier it will become. So I'm just going to add in fingering. It doesn't matter if you think in that should be an A3. Okay, it doesn't matter if you think in notation or like the actual names of the notes. I'll just do this for ease. Okay, so I'm going to start up that metronome once again. And this time I'm going to slow it down. Okay, I'm going to slow it down to 40. And the reason why is we're adding fingering now. We want intonation to be very precise, all of the movements to be precise. And think about it this way. If you're going to play something 10 times, you want it to be right at least 9 out of 10 times. That way you've played it correctly for 9 times and you've practiced for 9 times. If you play something 10 times and half the time it's wrong, 5 times out of 10 it's wrong, then you've practiced playing it incorrectly as much as you have correctly. Okay, so slow things down, make sure you can always play, you're always playing within your means at this stage so that you can reinforce good techniques and not practice bad ones. Okay, so slow it down a little bit, the rhythm's going to be a bit funny, I'm going to count myself in. So 1, then, and 1, then, and Great, so I always kind of work on that stuff until I've memorised it. That's usually a good sign that it's time to move on. Going through it nice and slowly as well, it's given me an opportunity to think, I think I would like to add a little piece of ornamentation there. So I'm adding this third finger cut in between those two notes, and that's where I was pulsing it. So I kind of want to accentuate. I want to sort of like make it known that there are two notes there by pulsing and putting that cut, and like it kind of maintains the rhythm over the two major beats. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy with that. And I'm going to move on to the next bar. Okay. So moving on to this next bar. Okay, again, rhythm counting it. 1, 2. Okay, this is easy. 2 and So what we're going to do here is I'm going to use a word. I'm going to use triplet in the middle. So I'm going to say 1 triplet, 2 and 1 triplet, 2 and that just works for me. I haven't quite got something numerical to give you for that, but that works well for me. 1 triplet, 2 and 1 triplet, 2 and okay. So again, I'm going to speed up my metronome to 50. Okay, cool. And I'm going to just talk that through. So 1 triplet, 2 and 1 triplet, 2 and 1 triplet, 2 and 1 triplet, 2 and so that's good. I'm now going to do it all on the 1 string. I'll count myself in. 1 triplet, 2 and 1 triplet, 2 and Great. And that, again, like it was kind of playing it by memory, closing my eyes, lets me really focus in on the sound that I'm making. So happy with that. I'm going to now move on to string differentiation. So again, this is now playing the strings that we would be playing, and it's actually not as tricky as it looks, because after that initial E, it's all A's, and the hard bit's going to be looping that back in, so going from the A onto the E. Okay, so I'm going to count myself in. 1 triplet 2 and 1 triplet 2 and okay, I'm relatively happy with that. Again, that was memorized, and now I'm just going to add in fingering. I wouldn't usually do this for myself because I'm quite comfortable with reading notation, but I'm just doing that for the benefit of any people who prefer looking at fingering, because it doesn't really matter whether you use fingering or whether you use the notation, because what we want to do is we want to put it in our memory as quickly as possible, and whatever gets that result quickest, that's the best thing. Okay, so I'm going to slow it down to 40. This is to make sure that we can be accurate and play within our means. Because I've slowed it down, I'm going to have to count myself in again, find that rhythm once more. 1 triplet 2 and 1 triplet 2 and okay, cool. I'm sure you've all heard that mistake there. I played the B as natural. Wasn't paying attention to the key signature. 1 triplet 2 and okay, great. I've kind of memorized that, so I'm happy enough with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to extend my box, and I'm going to go over the first 2 bars, and I'm going to do that at 40, and I'm going to try and speed it up to a target speed of 50, so I'm playing it at the same speed that I was playing all of the rhythm playing at. Okay, so starting at 40, I'll count myself in. I'll use the rhythm from the first bar to count myself in. 1, then 2, and 1, then, and okay, that sounds okay, so I'm going to speed it up to 45. 1, then, and 1, then, and cool. Now, just to make this loop work, I'm actually throwing a slur in just here, an up bow slur, just so I can land that down. I might keep that in as I look at the next bar. I might not as well, but just let you know. So I'm going to speed it up to 50 now. 1, then, and 1, then, and cool. All right. This is also really cool. I'm enjoying what I'm doing is I'm turning I'm adding a grace note here as well. So I'm just kind of coming onto that one, or that F sharp or F natural slowly. So I'm coming onto the, starting on the A and then bringing the F natural in. I'm liking that piece of ornamentation. That's probably going to stay. I'm going to just speed this up to 55 and see where we are at that speed. One then, and one then, and cool. I mean, I'm not thinking that it's going to need to be much faster than that. I'm just going to write in another piece of ornamentation that's sort of coming in here. That's a nice little ornament there. And I'm getting this ornamentation because of this method, because I'm taking it nice and slowly. It's giving me time to think about how I want to play this stuff. And, you know, this is just temporary. I might kind of get rid of this later. Alright, so next bar. Next bar is very, very, very similar to the first bar, where instead it's starting on a B, where the first bar was starting on an A. Alright, so this should be a little bit easier now, but we're still going to do the method. We're still going to count it, we're still going to rhythm play it, we're still going to do string differentiation, because we're not trying to learn the phrase, we're trying to practice our fundamental techniques. Okay? So I'm going to take it to 50. Okay, here's the metronome. And I don't need to tell you now, but it's going to be 1, then, and 1, then, and 1, then, and 1, then, and okay, that's the rhythm. I'm going to play that now. 1, then, and 1, then, and okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to move on to string differentiation. So this is actually really good, because this is going to be a G, and then what we're having to do is we're having to make our way all the way across the D and the A to get to this E. And we don't really want to sound out any of those strings. So this is going to be quite an interesting technique. 1, then, and 1, then, and there we go. Tricky that as well. The G does ring out. It's very hard not to have the G ring out because you've not got any fingers down, but let's see how that goes when we add the fingering in. But that is a really it's a very worthwhile right hand technical practice. So I'm just going to write in fingering here. So that's 2, and I got 2. I'm going to write in that 1. And 3. Okay, cool. So again, I'm going to slow it down to 40 BPM. Okay. my metronome's crashed, so it's only going to let me play at this speed. That's fine, but I would slow it down. 1, then, and 1, then, and quite tricky to kind of get that to come in at the right, to come in slowly, to swell into that G at that speed. So definitely worth the practice. I'm just going to maybe put my phone on charge and maybe it'll not be such a pain. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to go back to including the other bars. And if you have the time, a really good way to do this is to include the second bar, you know, so to do it like this and then like this. Yeah. I'll tell you what, let's just do that. Let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to start with this guy. And let's see, maybe I can get metronome on Google. Yeah, I think I can, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start at 45. Okay. 1 triplet 2 and 1 triplet 2 and 1 triplet 2 and okay, I'm relatively happy with that. So I'm now going to include the first bar. One, then, and 1, then, and one, then, and 1, then, and it doesn't sound very nice looping it, so I'm just gonna take a wee gap. 1, then, and just gonna tighten my bow. I'm not quite getting my desired effect. 1, then, and one, then, and excellent. Okay, so that's kind of getting there for me. I'm gonna have to say I probably would practice this a lot more, but I think it'll be less interesting for you if I do. Okay, and here we've just got, I guess it's like a staccato really. 1, then, and oops, what am I doing here? I suppose it's a syncopation really. So if we were counting it out, it'd be 1 and 2 and okay. So obviously we don't need the breaks. Yeah. So 1 1 1 1 and 1 and 1 and yeah, that's haven't got better words for you there. Okay, let's just try it with the metronome. So it would be 1 then 2 and 1 then 2 and so what we could do is we can just drop the 1 and then drop the and. So 1 2 and 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 so now we're going to drop the 2 as well. 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and so yeah, that's quite a tricky rhythm. I would work on that a bit. It's sometimes easier to play than it is to count, but if you can count it in your head, or if you can have the rhythm clear in your mind, it's much easier to play. Okay, so I'm going to play this rhythm. 1 and 1 and that's quite tricky, just trying to get the nice stop on the open string. So we're going to move on to, I could practice that a little bit more, but let's move on. I'm going to play the string differentiation. 1 and 1 and 1 and difficult. Yeah, it's tricky that. Okay, I'm going to add in the fingering. One and 1 and 1 and three, 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and okay, I think for the purposes of this, I'm happy enough with that. So again, if you have the time, kind of go backwards through it, so 1 bar at a time. But I'm just running out of time now, so I'm going to just play this whole section. Okay, 1, then, and 1, then, and okay, happy enough with that. I'm going to speed it up to 50, so that's up by 5 beats per minute. 1, then, and 1, then, and cool. So that's it. I'm going to have to finish up there. So what I would do is, I would say, yeah, of course, I've make a note of my homework diary. I think it's really useful for you to keep a homework diary for this reason, because we've done quite a lot of good stuff here, but there's still some things that need a little bit of work, a little bit of attention, and you know, hopefully you're able to practice at the same time tomorrow for the same amount of time, but you know, it might be that you can't see this for an extra day, you know, and you want to make a note of things that you need to think about. So for me, I would want to work on this change a little bit, and I also wasn't that happy with this ornament, and if I'm totally honest, I would also like to just go over this rhythm, even though it kind of worked for me okay when I had the context of the tune. I really do think that you should be able to work on some of these things in a modular way. It will make you a much better player if you can. So yeah, that's the fiddle tutor method. Well, step 1 of the fiddle tutor method. But of course, we can only apply step 1 until we can't move on to step 2 until we've done step 1 through the whole tune, which is what I'm going to be doing in the next installment. Okay, so if you like, have a crack at this, and I'll see you in the next one.